Lewd grandmas, got milk ads, bunny window shopping. The fall 2024 anime season, while admittedly not the greatest, still gave us a lot of really wonderful shows to watch. People fell in love with crazy, myself included. Hajime met his greatest enemy, cockroaches. Heretics were burned. People finally discovered that Goku failed at parenting. Tino's thighs and not Kuro Ilya stole our hearts. Subcounts brought his power level over 9,000. Asahi is the most computer illiterate gremlin ever. Hi honey, I'm home from school. Lime best boy. And most importantly, we learned that selling your kidney is the best method to get a boyfriend. But nobody wants to watch all 60 titles, so I'm here to give you my top 10 anime of the fall 2024 anime season. As per usual, my top 10 list only includes shows that actually end its airing in the season itself, so there's a lot of shows that got disqualified, and I think they're actually the best shows of the season, so let's talk about those first. First things first, yes, ReZERO. I cannot express enough. I absolutely love ReZERO. If it was in the list, it would be number one. There's nothing coming close to it. It's up there with my favorite anime of all time, right there with Mushoku Tensei and Ascendance of Bookworm. They're just above everything else. Like, there's nothing that comes close to them for isekais. The talent for the writing behind these series is so phenomenal. And the great thing about ReZERO specifically is I just love how this writer knows how to hold his cards. He knows how to reveal things when he needs to reveal them, not give you too much. It gives you plenty of questions from that actual answer, and you just keep being pulled along. And the characters are just absolutely phenomenal. Like, every single one that's introduced, even if they're bad guys, even if they're, in that gray area, I'm just waiting for them to get, deep dived into so I can get more information. That's what I love. Like, they're so good at characters and giving them personality, driving force, and make you question where their allegiances are and whatnot. This writer is just too freaking good at what they do, and I just love the world. The visual design is fantastic, and the production quality is absolutely phenomenal. Everything about it, everything about this season has been fantastic. Getting the witches coming in there, I'm just at the edge of my seat wondering what's coming up next. Capella is so freaking crazy. I like her. Priscilla is amazing. I want more of her. Like, all these characters are phenomenal. I just cannot wait for more. But yes, if it was in the list, it would be number one, easy, but we can't. It's going to be in winter. It's going to take over winter, okay? Moving on, Orb on the Movements of the Earth, the most slept on peak anime of fall 2024 anime season, and we're going into winter season. I just absolutely love Orb, even though I hate it at the same time. It's a painful watch, but I absolutely love it. Please go watch Orb. Orb is phenomenal. It's a series of individuals that are all trying to seek out knowledge of how the universe itself works. And of course, the church does not like that. So they're constantly trying to hide from the inquisitors while gaining knowledge. It gets really deep into the idea of somebody being inspired for seeking truth, seeking knowledge, and almost the addictive nature that is. Like, despite the fact that you might be, you're going to be burned at the stake, people seek out knowledge. They get that thirst for knowledge that they cannot ignore. And I love how they portray that in this series. And yes, constantly just has me at the edge of my seat, wondering what's going to happen next. Are they going to get caught? What are they going to do to avoid dying? All that stuff is super good. The characters are fantastic, and I just cannot wait for more. This series is phenomenal. Please go watch it. And then yes, unfortunately, Danmachi will not be making the cut for my list. And yes, there's a very good reason for that. It's only like 2/3 of the way through its actual runtime, and yes, it has been indefinitely, well, that's not indefinitely delayed right now. It's at spring now. It's been kicked all the way back to spring, and unfortunately, that sucks because gosh dang, this season has been absolutely phenomenal. If it was actually ending in fall, it would probably be way up there. If ReZERO and Orb weren't on the list, it'd be taking number one. Like, easy taking number one. This season has been so freaking fantastic. It's a great return for the series for me. Granted, before, like the previous season, I really did enjoy as well, but this season especially has just been so dang good. Bringing Freya up to the forefront, having a really cool twist in it at some point. I'm really engaged on seeing what's going to happen next. I really want to know what happens with these characters. And yes, this whole thing with Horn and Freya and this bridging of minds, it is so freaking good. This is the kind of stuff that I personally just eat up. But I wanted to come back. It sucks that it's been delayed for so long. Hopefully that means the production quality will actually, get better, or at least fix, or anything they have a problem with, they'll fix it. But unfortunately, as we've seen in the past, that doesn't always mean they fix any problems. It just means that they finish it. So either way, I cannot wait for it to come back, and it's been phenomenal so far. But that's it. That's the continuing shows that I give them attention, even though everybody every single year, they're like, why isn't this in your list? Because I said it in disclaimers, they're carrying over, they're for that season. All those shows are going to dominate in winter and again, spring for Danmachi. Let's talk about what is my top 10 anime of the fall 2024 anime season. Kicking things off, let's start off, Magilumiere, Magical Girl Inc. I absolutely love this show. And I was actually thinking I was going to, looking at the previews and whatnot for the series. It looked like basically taking the concept of magical girls and corporatizing it. Make it a business. So you have this world where these monsters show up and then suddenly people start fighting back against them and it becomes a business. Companies start springing up here and there where they hire in girls, they give them the components in order to transform into magical girls, they go out there with pretty much like coded programs for their spells, and they go out there and they use the spells and they attack the monsters, and then they put them in USB drives. That's the weird part. It's almost like a Ghostbusters thing. Rather than put the little thing out there to capture them inside of it, they just take a thumb drive and it sucks it through the port. And then they take it back to the company and they stick it inside the computer and apparently it downloads it. I don't know. It's weird. I guess they're probably later on going to get in some weird conspiracy theory about how like the monsters were created by mans, just like the magic is programmed. Technically, the monsters are probably programs. I don't know. We'll see. But no, so far I've been really, really loving this series. I'm so glad it's getting a second season, and I was afraid it wouldn't just because of how little attention it was getting. And there's an obvious reason why it wasn't getting attention. It's on Amazon. Nobody wants to watch an Amazon show, unfortunately. You'd think that'd get a lot more attention, but either way, I've been really, really loving this show so far, and I think it's so much in the characters themselves. It opens up with a girl named Kana, and she's trying to look for a job. Eventually, she helps some magical girl take down this monster, and she joins their little startup company. And this is like one of those aspects of where the company that the main character's in is so outside the norm of everybody else, where they actually do really good in communication and set up and create spells based on the circumstances. And this is something that kind of sets them aside from everybody else. That's just all about like, you know, this is the form, go with this way, and that's how you do it. But the characters themselves are so fantastic. I love Kana, the main character. She reminds me a lot of the main character from New Game. She's super cute. I love her personality. She's such a bookworm. Like she got like a photographic memory. So whenever she reads something, she memorizes it. And then she's joined with like more of a person that's just a natural, which is Hitomi. Hitomi is like her senpai. We have like the crazy boss that comes to work in a magical girl outfit, and he's got some deep dark secret from his past that makes him like very, very important. You have the coder guy that looks like Deku from My Hero Academia. That's just a total geek when it comes to magical girl outfits. Just so on and so forth. I think the cast itself just kind of makes it really, really good. The only reason it's way down at 10 for me and not anywhere higher is I do feel like there's a couple episodes that were a little bit of a throwaway. But overall, I think it's just got great chemistry. It's got a great setup, and I just cannot wait for more. Moving on to my number 9, I have Negative Positive Angler. This show was just kind of special in a lot of ways. Just has a charm about it that I really enjoyed watching every week. It opens up with a guy who's like the edge of the rope. Literally, like he's putting around his neck and he's trying to end himself. But he realized that he has is scheduled to go to the doctor. He goes there. They do a brain scan. They come to find out that he only has about 2 years left to live. And he's like, well, I guess that's it. I might as well just live it up. I got 2 more years to live. Just live it up. Who cares? I was already kind of trying to end it before. Why not? And what kind of comes from this is that he falls into some water because he's being chased by debt collectors. He ends up kind of getting saved by a group of fishermen, and they're out there on this breakwater, and he kind of gets roped into trying out fishing. And he tries it, and he's like, that's fine, whatever. It wasn't that great, but over time, he kind of hangs out with these individuals. He ends up getting hired into the company, this little market that they work at, just because they want to fish while he doesn't like fishing. But the whole idea here is that he's hanging out with these individuals. All of them have their own reason for wanting to fish. They have their own lives they're dealing with. And through that whole kind of experience with all these individuals, he's kind of getting pulled along into their lives. And yes, learning to enjoy life again. He's finding things to actually enjoy in the world and actually form bonds with people. It just seemed like before he wasn't really social. And so it's through these encounters that he has with these individuals that he's, again, finding a new purpose in life itself. And I love how it doesn't really have like fixes at any point. Like even like the earlier episodes where you have like, oh, here, try out fishing. This just sucks. And he throws the reel out there and he finally catches something and is like, oh, what did you think about that? It's fine. There's not like a fix in his life. It's like suddenly go, oh, now I suddenly love life now. It's really kind of grounded in how it kind of portrays these characters, the constant struggles they have, and yes, the insecurities that Sunihiro himself has. I think it was just beautifully portrayed. It has a phenomenal ending to it. It's one of those series where I really kind of felt like it's going to go this direction, isn't it? And it doesn't do that, which I really do appreciate. It's a really good show. great vibes, fantastic music. Overall, just a really solid series. Moving on to my number 8, I'll Become a Villainess Who Will Go Down in History. My gosh, this show was a true gem for me. Like, I had some hope for it, but overall, I really had no expectations for this show, especially since it's Maho Films, which I absolutely detest Maho Films with a burning passion. If anybody knows me, they're like, yep, it's Maho Films. Andrew's going to complain about it. I hate this studio. They're just terrible. But thankfully, this series, they held it together decently. The writing itself, the characters, the chemistry, everything else really kind of just carried it, really is what it is. Like, even if it did look wonky here and there, a lot of the time, I'm like, I don't care because I like what I'm seeing here. And it's really just comes down to sort of the gimmick within this story that really did have me hooked. Yes, it's a villainous story. Yes, it's somebody who gets isekai'd as the villainous character in an otome game. So you do have, yes, the main girl, she's going into this academy, and there's all these pretty boys. But no, it starts really early before the game starts where they realize, yes, I am in this world. I know who this character is. It's actually her favorite character because she hates the main character. She hates how goody two-shoe the main character is. They're all about sunshine and rainbows and everything's going to fall into place, right? As long as everybody's happy, let's all come together, kumbaya. Yeah, the villainess thinks that stuff is just not really... It's not reality. A lot of that stuff's not reality. And I think that's where the cool thing comes from this, because it almost turns into, yes, she wants to be the greatest villainess ever. She knows that the villainess is actually the better character, and she's going to go in that world, and she's going to tell everybody what's for. She's going to be the greatest. So she quickly starts to train herself, gets strong, and then we get into the element where, yes, she's getting pulled into the academy where the game starts. But that's where the really cool stuff happens. This is where the hook happens for me, because the king calls the main character, Alicia, the villainess, to the throne room and says, hey, I want you to be a guide for Liz, who is the chosen one, again, the main character for the otome game. I want you to guide her because everybody seems to accept anything she says. It's starting to get into the idea of the main character of the otome game almost having like a charm about herself, like a magical charm about herself, and nobody will question anything she says. And everything that she's saying is misguided. Everything that she's saying, like, okay, we should just make everybody equal. Well, then you don't have structure. Like, there's all these little things that she's saying that will cause ruin to the world later on. So being the villainess, she's like, hell yeah, I'll do that. I get to tell her to shut up. I'm going to do that. And it turned into some cool stuff. And again, it does get the idea that people are being charmed, and obviously will kind of push back against Alicia if she's being this villainous character that tells Liz, hey, your ideas are dumb. All that stuff is really cool. I like how it went to some really cool places. The only reason it's so far down for me in my list is really around the idea that there is quite a bit of stuff outside of the area with the nearby kingdoms and whatnot that I felt like was too much of a focus and really kind of drew from the overall story. But it wasn't that much though. So still a fantastic series. I highly recommend it if you like villainous stories. It was a nice little kind of unique take on it that I really enjoyed. All right, get your pitchforks ready there, Shonen Bros. Yes, my number 7, and not my number 1, is Bleach 1000-Year Blood War, The Conflict. Yes, I have actually really enjoyed this season so far. I've been pretty vocal before that, yes, I've been falling out of love of the shonen formula. The idea of power up, fight this guy, oh, you beat him, no, he didn't actually beat him, here's his next form, he's going to hit him, oh no, he's down for the count, nope, he's back up, and they keep going back and forth, slapping each other down until the overall story kind of progress. But I did find this season to be very enjoyable. A lot of the fights in this season were pretty fantastic. I mean, obviously, Kuretsuchi being crazy. Like, the dude's crazy, and I love him whenever he fights. Like, every scene where he's fighting, I absolutely love it. Yes, we had a little moment with Kiraku. Like, that whole fight was fantastic as well. Really good fights in this season itself. The only thing that's kind of bogging it down for me, really, is I hate Ishida so much. I've never liked Ishida's character. He's like the only character in the entire series that I don't like. He just feels like I've liked him before, but I don't like him as a rival character. I like him as almost like a bro to Ichigo, because I love Ichigo's character. He's like my favorite shonen protagonist, by the way. I haven't watched One Piece yet, though, but for what I've watched, he's my favorite. I've always liked him when he's a bro to Ichigo. I don't like him when he's a rival, and it feels like they're really forcing him to be a rival in this season. And so whenever he's in the show, it's like, get off the screen. Everything else, though, I really liked about this season. And unfortunately, again, because my taste in shonen is kind of going down, that's why it's down at 7. But still, really enjoy it. Fantastic animation. Moving on to my number 6. I love how I have to spend most of my time saying why it's so low, but that's what it is. Moving on to my number 6. Natsume's Book of Friends, Season 7, My gosh, I absolutely love Natsume's Book of Friends, and I will still love it. I will always love it. It just has so much comfort in it. I really always like the aesthetic and the feel of Natsume's Book of Friends. I think the writer, after so many seasons, yes, 7 seasons, has still not lost that talent. Like, I just love the warmth that comes from these characters. Natsume is a fantastic character. Yonko Sensei, I just want to hug him. I just want to hug Yonko. But no, I will admit that this season, not my favorite of all the seasons. Typically, Natsume's Book of Friends goes really high up on my list just because I think every single season is absolutely phenomenal. This season was probably easily its weakest season overall, but it's still a really good series. I still love the look in the lore, getting a little bit more look into some of the clans and whatnot. And it's crazy because this is actually the season that has probably one of the best episodes of the series so far, and that was finally getting to Reiko. We're finally getting the origin story of Reiko, and it just came out of nowhere. This episode suddenly kicks off with Kendra Suda. He's doing the narration by this one yokai, and we finally get a little origin story to Reiko, and I really, really loved it. But yes, really fantastic. Really love this series. Continue to love this series. Natsume's Book of Friends, easily my number 6. Moving on to my number 5, we have Devil's a Part-Timer in the Future. Demon Lord 2099. This show was a surprise for me. I really wasn't expecting to like this show. I figured, like, okay, it's probably going to do the Devil's a Part-Timer thing. He goes in the future. The Demon Lord goes in the future. He's going to, go off to the side. He's going to be a burger flipper or something like that. Yeah, technically from the PVs, it gave the indication that he was going to do live streaming or VTubing or something. Yes, that's what he ends up doing. We have the Demon Lord. He dies. He goes off in the future. He's reborn there. But that's where everything kind of just twists and goes into some really interesting directions. It basically implies the idea that our world was merged with their world, and then they had this big, huge war that happened between all the citizens of all the sides. Lots of people were hunted down and killed. The Immortals, which were essentially following the Demon Lord, they were hunted down. Tons of crazy stuff happens. One of his generals, runs this massive corporation that creates a new tech for casting spells. So much crazy stuff happens. Yes, and the technology itself just evolves. And that's where it's, suddenly just grabbed me, holy crap, this writer thought about this, really deep. That's what really gets me to my overall thoughts of the series. It didn't even scratch the surface as to everything that it has essentially set up. It has a very, very intriguing world, different classes of people, different power structures, the technology itself, the different races and everything. And yes, in the middle of it all is this Demon Lord trying to get strong again. And yes, how he does that is he becomes a live streamer. He gets a whole bunch of subscribers, and that's what powers him up. Because yes, his power is from his followers. So yeah, become a viral hit online and you'll suddenly have a lot of followers that will power you up. It was a very interesting way to give it a sort of a power dynamic to the character himself, get his strength up, be able to kind of rise up. And then yes, from that point, start to kind of dive into different areas of the actual world itself. And it's all just super interesting to me. And what carries it all through all that stuff is, yes, really fantastic characters. I think the Demon Lord himself is just fantastic. He's got a great charisma about himself. He's got that high and mighty attitude that is warranted. He's super OP because he is, and he just kind of digs into it. And at the same time, he's supported by some really fantastic characters like Makina, which is literally his right-hand woman, and she's fantastic. And can I say, I really appreciate for once having a character who's literally been sitting there waiting for the main character to be revived for so many freaking years, and having something set up for him for when he returns, and he actually appreciates it. She's been trying so damn hard while he's gone, and he literally embraces her and says, "Thank you. You've been working really hard." For once, they're not completely oblivious to it. Can we at least appreciate that? Yeah, Takahashi's fantastic as well. She's the hacker girl. She's super freaking cute. There's just so many freaking good characters. And then later on, storylines, getting into another character that I really loved as well. The hero himself, my gosh, he's so freaking great. I love the hero. I want him more in there. They kind of turn him to more like a bro character for the main character. All that stuff is fantastic. And again, like I said earlier, we're not even scratching the surface to the world itself. And I just want another season. This is one of those ones where I'm very close to jumping in the source material, because I really do feel either the adaptation makes it feel that way, or the writer has set up a lot of stuff and he doesn't plan on going into it. But there's so many signs to the potential of the world that he has to be extremely expansive. And that's the stuff that I eat up. But yes, Demon Lord 2099, an absolute surprise hit for me for this season. Moving on to my number 4, Andrew gets exposed as a furry lover. Yes, Beastars final season part 1. If you know me, you know I'm going to put this in my list because I absolutely love Beastars. This series is so fantastic. And what I've always loved about Beastars is the ability for this writer to create a world where instead of humans walking amongst the streets, it's beast people, animal people. You have a wolf guy over here is walking down the street and he's holding hands with a bunny girl. She's walking down the street with him. It's the ability to create a believable society where all these individuals live side by side, despite the fact that, yes, a wolf person would probably want to eat the bunny person. But that's where it gets into the kind of the deeper struggles that this series has always kind of presented, and it's always been fascinating. The idea of the instincts of the individuals, yet the ability to kind of push to coexist. That despite the fact that, yes, you do have cases where suddenly out of nowhere this person does get overwhelmed with their instincts and they do consume this other animal, people are trying to keep that order and that structure. But I do really feel like with the final season, or at least this first part so far, has really started kind of reintroducing the idea of segregating these individuals, separating the herbivores from the carnivores, because there is a danger, there's a threat, something has happened, and people are getting afraid again. And people are starting to kind of gossip and whisper here and there about how this might not be something that we can actually do. It's always had the concept of the black market within this world, this idea of, yes, a place where a person can go to buy fresh meat and be able to consume it and give in to those instincts. But it's always been something that has kind of been shunned before, whereas now it feels like it's coming to the surface again. And this season so far has presented a lot of that stuff coming back to the forefront again, that idea of can we live side by side coming up again, and yes, getting into a new villain character being brought to the picture that's really kind of trying to shift things as well. Really great stuff here. I love the new Beastar they actually introduced with this season. I think he's fantastic. His character's in that gray area that I always absolutely love. And I cannot wait to see where it goes from here. Really crappy spot to leave part 1 at, but it is to be expected lately. I don't know why. We had dandadan did that same damn thing. There's so many shows in this season that had really bad stopping points, but I love this series. It looks fantastic. It is fully CGI, but I think Orange is doing some really creative stuff with this stuff. I wish they would stop with the frame cutting. I hate the frame cutting. Can we stop the frame cutting? I hate it. It's jaggy looking. I hate it. But no, great stuff. Getting into Legacy's past and his mother and his grandfather, all that stuff was super fantastic, and I just cannot wait for more. Transitioning over to my number 3. Yes, Ranma 1/2, the 2024 edition, the new remake of Ranma 1/2. My gosh, I absolutely love Ranma 1/2. I loved it way back in the day. I actually jumped into the manga way back then as well. I eat it up. I just think the characters and the comedy and everything in the series is so fantastic. And thankfully, the romance as well has always been kind of a driving force for me with the Ranma series. I just love the romance and chemistry between the character, and I'm already seeing that kind of come to life once again with this new adaptation. Mappa did a fantastic job, despite the fact that, yes, a lot of the nudity's been removed. That's to be expected, unfortunately, because, yes, things have been changing in Japan for broadcast restrictions and whatnot, so it's less allowed there. But either way, I still really love it, despite the niplessness. I don't like the niplessness. It creeps me out. But that said, I think this has been a really fantastic readaptation of the series. I mean, I enjoyed the readaptation of Urusei Yatsura, but there was a problem with that series where they were trying to skip to the introductions of all the characters and get to the end really quickly. Whereas this one really does feel like it's keeping true to the manga itself and adapting the whole thing, which has been really fantastic. I do have to iterate and be very clear here before somebody goes down in the comments down below. I actually heard a YouTuber say that they were actually skipping a bunch of stuff. They're adapting the manga, not readapting the first adaptation. The first adaptation of Ranma 1/2 added scenes, and they're not readapting those added original scenes from the original anime. They're actually doing just the manga. So it's not skipping stuff. It's just not adding anime original stuff like the last one did. It's been really, really good so far, and I think it's been a phenomenal adaptation. The style is fantastic. They really capture that old style while not looking old, which I really do appreciate. And my gosh, I need a season 2 like right now because Shampoo's sad. Shampoo Best Girl is sad right now, and I don't like it. I love Shampoo's character. I think she was like my favorite character of all time back then. But anyways, I'm loving the readaptation. It's been so fantastic. It's just a walk down memory lane. It's just how I remember it, and I just cannot wait for more. Moving on to my number 2. Yes, Tsumasho. The most controversial titled show, If My Wife Became an Elementary School Student, is easily my number 2 show. It's fighting to get up in that number 1 spot, but that number 1 is just dominating. I'm sorry. Tsumasho is just an absolutely beautiful series that unfortunately has the problem of don't judge a book by its cover, but yet people will judge it by the cover. Essentially opens up with a guy who loses his wife 10 years prior. He's never recovered from it. Neither has his daughter. And then one day this girl shows up at their door and says, "Hey, I'm your wife. I've been reborn." And now I'm an elementary school student. I just suddenly got my memories back to me just the other day, and I wanted to come by here and tell you guys to shape up and move on with your lives. I don't like to see you guys in this state. Please, get remarried. Hey, my daughter, go get married. Find yourself a man or something like that. Find yourself a good job, yada, yada, yada. And what kind of comes from the story is, yes, it does have a premise that opens up that is very controversial. You don't like the idea of this elementary school student marrying this old dude. What actually comes from this is because it's a controversial setup, it creates restrictions that prevents the characters from just resolving the issue so quickly. Like if she did come back and say, "Hey, I was reincarnated now I'm 20 years old. Okay, let's get remarried. Everything hunky-dory," right? No, because she's an elementary school student, it presents like these roadblocks that they have to kind of navigate around. Because yes, she, as the wife, the mother of this family, she wants to be with that family. They want to do everything they didn't do before she died before. Yes, this daughter wants her to be at her side to give her advice in navigating life. But now she's an elementary school student. And yes, the husband himself just wanting to be at her side, but he can't because he'll end up in jail. But yeah, the other aspect of it is that she does have restrictions because yes, she has an actual new family. And yes, it's a very abusive family that she has to go home to and that she has to be careful around. All these questions and issues get brought to the forefront while at the same time you have a family that was shattered 10 years prior trying to fix and remend that life and do everything they have regrets around. I think it's an absolutely beautiful show. For several episodes, it had me just bawling my eyes out. The emotion, the regrets, everything around the story just absolutely hit me personally, just stomach punch. And I loved every single minute of it. If you can manage to not judge a book by its cover, just give the show a shot. It's really phenomenal. And that all brings us down to my number 1 anime of the fall 2024 anime season. Without a doubt, there's no competition here. Leaps and bounds above everything else besides the continuing shows. Yes, Puniru is a kawaii slime. I absolutely loved Puniru. Puniru is just such a great... I'm just joking. It's dandadan. Dandadan is my easily my number 1 show of the fall 2024 anime season. This show is just phenomenal. Like through and through. There's so many aspects of this show that just work. Yes. It's Science Haru. And Science Haru, they cook. When they cook, they cook. This show looked so fantastic. It just nailed the aesthetic and the style of the manga itself. Yes, I've had my complaints about it being very mono in color constantly, but I really do feel like it captures almost a sense of the location they're in, and they do a really great job with it. It just oozes style, and the action scenes are just phenomenal. The kicking and the music and just having these kind of chase scenes or whatever, it looks so good, and it nails it. It nails the hype of every action scene so perfectly. But then you have like the characters themselves, which I just absolutely adore. Like every character they introduce with this series, I'm just like, maybe at first I'll have like a GG thing where it's like, I don't really like this guy and the comedy around him, but then they just grow on you. Like every one of these characters just has so much good chemistry. This writer nails chemistry. The characters just interacting with each other is so perfect. Especially Ayase and Okoron, our main 2 characters. I think their chemistry, their pairing is so good. This writer nails the idea of somebody who has never had friends suddenly having the opportunity to have a friend and not wanting to let that go, and then later on having a moment where you get jealousy involved, where they're thinking, maybe there's something more to this. Maybe I like this person a lot. Getting into romance and whatnot that is just really, really well done. And Ayase herself, she's a badass. I love Ayase's character so freaking much. This girl's full of heart. She kicks butt. Everything about her. And then, yes, having that other side of her, which is, yes, full of regrets about her and her relationship with her grandmother, not believing in these spiritual powers and whatnot, and now being kind of given that power and now having to kind of navigate it and figure it out. And yes, that all leads into the fight scenes themselves, where these two are just completely dysfunctional and trying to struggle through every situation they're in, trying to figure out their powers, trying to work how they work out, and then fumbling through every encounter they have. Their chemistry and their just back and forth is so much fun, even in the fight scenes. But yes, I love seeing them navigate their own feelings. And the way that that's been portrayed so far is just so well done. Again, probably one of the best romances besides Danger to My Heart this year. It's so good. It's so good. And yes, above all that, what I really love at the core of everything that I just mentioned is having no filters. I think this writer has no filters. I'm glad the adaptation itself and Science Saru has been navigating the fact that it lacks those filters as well. Just having things happen that, yes, are questionable. Having things that'll happen that are like, oh, that kind of just fell out there. Having those moments where the characters are talking about this guy literally losing his family jewels and having to seek them out, and then having the family jewels get caught up in some shenanigans between the characters, and it's just hilarious. It's hilarious, and it just happens, and I just love the fact that it doesn't hide from that. But yeah, through and through, easily, without a doubt, number one of fall 2024 anime season, dandadan. It's incredible. Go watch it if you're not watching it already. And I just cannot wait for it to come back. Probably the only thing I'm really upset about this series is it had a really crappy stopping point. Well, that's a total cliffhanger for the next episode. Why would you stop it there? But that is it. That is the best of the fall 2024 anime season. For my honorable mentions, I actually really enjoyed Nina the Starry Bride. I think it's a really good setup for like just an absolute odd soap opera. And I'm really curious to see where it goes from here. Unfortunately, it has no season 2, and it has a really crappy stopping point. So I would probably suggest people, if you haven't watched it yet, unless you're going to check out the source material, I would probably wait to see if there's going to be a second season announcement, because it's not a good stopping point. But I do really like it. I like the characters. Nina's a great main character. Loner Life in Another World, I actually enjoy that series as well. It's just kind of a stupid isekai. It's not trash isekai category, but it's just kind of the element of just a guy trying to just enjoy his life in his new world and constantly being surrounded by cute girls. Puniru is quite slimy, even though I joked about it earlier. Yes, I did actually like quite a bit of Puniru. I do think that it has a very juvenile comedy to it that did kind of get boring at times, but it was still cute, still fun. Grieving Soul Retire, I wanted this to be in my top 10 list, but unfortunately there's a massive chunk of this series that just had me bored out of my mind. But yeah, any moment with Tino, any moment with, yes, Kuro Ilya, and all the characters around the main character was a lot of fun. And then finally, Sengoku Yoko. As much as I really, really liked the first season of that series, I really do feel like there's a massive chunk of season 2 that was also very boring, but I do really like where it ends up kind of developing to. I think the later parts of that season was really fantastic, and the conclusion overall was very, very satisfying. But yeah, that's it. That is my top 10 anime of the fall 2024 anime season. I hope you guys enjoyed this list as always. There's a lot of lists to do in the last couple weeks, so I hope I'm not overburdening you guys with too many shows, but I did have to get this done. And despite the fact that I've done all these lists, I do have to finish and conclude my fall season listing. So there it is. There you have it. Hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you find something in there that you guys want to check out. Even if you haven't checked it out before, maybe if it catches your interest, check it out. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. As per usual, I welcome you guys to go down in comments down below. Let me know what your top 10 anime of the fall 2024 anime season is. Or, I mean, if you haven't watched 10 shows, just tell me what your top shows are. You don't have to give me 10. But additionally, if you like this video, make sure to hit the like button. If you want to support the channel, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate what it does. And until next time, until winter 2025, y'all take care.